You know, we're always taught that history is just one thing after another, a neat timeline of events. But what if two of the biggest events of the 20th century weren't separate events at all? What if they were just one long, brutal story with a 21-year intermission?
Okay, so we all learned this in school, right? World War I, the war to end all wars, it officially wraps up in 1918. Done.
And then, fact number two, 21 years go by and bam, the world is right back at it. World War II kicks off, two different wars. That's the story we're all told.
But what if I told you that story is wrong? That they were actually the same war, just with a long, simmering pause in the middle. And once you understand why, well, you're never going to look at a peace deal on the news the same way again.
See, the whole key to this is realizing that a war ending on a piece of paper and a war actually ending in the hearts and minds of the people who fought it are two totally different things. And this is where that pause really begins.
So the Treaty of Versailles was supposed to be the end of World War I. But what it really did was corner a nation of 70 million people and just humiliate them. It wrecked Germany's economy, carved up its land, and handed them a bill that was impossible to pay. It didn't fix anything. It basically guaranteed another fight. And to give you an idea of how deep that wound was, just look at this timeline. That debt from the treaty was so huge that Germany only made its final payment in 2010. 2010. That's 92 years after the fighting stopped. The war was over, but the feeling of being punished, that stuck around for almost a century.
And this is where we pivot from history to psychology. Because that feeling, that long, slow burn of being punished, it creates something really powerful and really dangerous. It builds what you could call a humiliation engine that starts driving an entire country's future.
Yeah, a psychologist named Evelyn Linder spent her career studying this. And what she found was that when a whole country feels humiliated, it's not just like everyone feels sad or mad. No way. It becomes this active political force that can shape everything for generations to come.
And this force, it actually has a name, revanchism. It comes from the French word for revenge. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's when that feeling of humiliation gets turned into a political mission, a national obsession, to get back what was lost and restore a sense of pride.
And this process, it follows a scarily predictable script. First, there's shock. The losing side has to accept the harsh terms because, well, what choice do they have? Then that shock turns into resentment. The story of their humiliation gets told over and over in speeches, in the news, everywhere. And then finally, step 3. A leader steps onto the stage who promises to be the hero of that story, to get back everything that was taken away. This isn't just a Germany thing. This is a pattern we've seen again and again.
So let's zoom out, because this humiliation engine isn't some relic of the past. It's running right now, all over the world, in conflicts that we're told are over, but are really just on pause.
I mean, think about the Korean War. An armistice was signed way back in 1953, but a peace treaty? Never happened. They are technically still at war. Or look at the fighting over Nagorno-Karabakh, where ceasefire was just another word for time to rearm. And of course, the roots of the current war in Ukraine go back decades to guarantees and grievances that were never truly settled. It's the same pattern. Sign a paper, leave the real problem unsolved, and just wait for the inevitable next round.
So, just how inevitable is it? Well, a political scientist named Barbara Walter actually put a number on it. And frankly, it's pretty terrifying. That number is 60%.
And here's what that 60% means. Walter discovered that if you don't solve the core problem, the thing people are actually fighting about, then more than half of those conflicts just start right back up again within 5 years. She calls it the ceasefire trap. You think you're ending the war, but all you're really doing is scheduling the next one, giving everyone a little break to let that sense of injustice get even stronger.
So if punishing people and hitting the pause button doesn't work, what does? Well, history gives us a beautiful, almost perfect experiment with 2 world wars that ended in 2 completely different ways. And it all boils down to one simple choice. Do you punish or do you rebuild?
I mean, this slide says it all, doesn't it? After World War I, the winners chose punishment. The result? National humiliation. And, yep, World War II. After the Second World War, the US and its allies did the exact opposite. They chose to rebuild. And the result? Decades of peace.
And we're not talking about a small gesture here. The Marshall Plan poured the equivalent of $170 billion of today's dollars into rebuilding Europe, and that included their former enemy, West Germany.
And that gets to the real genius of it. This wasn't just about money and buildings. It was about psychology. It was about deliberately taking the fuel out of the humiliation engine. If you punish your enemy, you're just begging them to seek revenge down the line. But if you rebuild them, you turn an enemy into a partner.
Okay, but this all seems so incredibly obvious in hindsight, right? So the really big question is, if we know this works, why do we keep making the same mistake? Why do we keep choosing the path we know leads to more war?
Well, the answer is kind of simple and a little depressing. It's all about politics. After a terrible war, people are angry. They want justice, and justice often feels a lot like punishment. So a leader who comes home with a harsh treaty looks strong. But a leader who says, hey, let's send a bunch of money to the people who were just shooting at us, that's a really, really tough sell. The short-term satisfaction of revenge often just feels better than the long-term wisdom of peace.
But the people who championed the Marshall Plan, they understood a fundamental truth that we seem to keep forgetting. Rebuilding might be expensive and politically difficult now, but that cost is always less than the cost of having to fight that same enemy all over again.
And this is why all of this matters to you right now. Because once you understand this pattern, you have a brand new lens for looking at the world. The next time you see a headline about a ceasefire or a peace treaty somewhere, you can ask one simple question. Does this deal punish or does it rebuild? And right there, in that moment, you'll have a pretty good idea if you're looking at a real end to a conflict or just another pause.
So we're left with this choice, this exact same dilemma playing out in real time all around us. Do you punish the enemy today and get that sense of justice, or do you make the hard, unpopular choice to rebuild them and actually secure peace for tomorrow? History has shown us the answer over and over again. The only real question is whether we're finally ready to